Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time.
Good to talk to you again, Sharri.
Now, you've written a withering letter to Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Why do you believe history will remember him as a weak politician?
Well, look, I'm sure he has a reputable record as a public servant, but I think his record is forever tarnished by the weakness that he showed in the face of these Hamas terrorist monsters. You know, when the worst terrorist organization on earth, these savages who murdered women, raped them, beheaded men, burnt babies alive in front of their parents, and took hundreds of hostages. When these people congratulate the Prime Minister of Australia, you know something is wrong. And in fact, it is wrong, because to offer them a state, when they had a state, a de facto state in Gaza, and they use it for murder, pillage, and monstrous crimes, is to reward terrorism. And I think that's a sign of weakness that, as I said, will tarnish the Prime Minister's record, and I said so openly.
Have you been shocked at the anti-Semitism, the violence, the hatred you've seen unfolding on our streets here in Australia, and then the lack of action and the lack of leadership from the very top, from our Prime Minister?
Well, I was very dismayed. I've seen this this tsunami of anti-Semitism, this racism, and this targeting of the deliberate targeting of the innocents, the burning of a synagogue in Melbourne, and so on. These are horrible things. And you know, if you don't stop them when they're small, they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and ultimately they consume your society. And I see the idea. I think a lot of Western leaders are showing this weakness, or what Churchill called the slumber of democracies. He said democracies sleep, they go to sleep, and they wake up only when they hear the jarring gong of danger. Well, we hear more than a jarring gong. We hear alarm bells all over the place, where you have these fanatics, these Islamist fanatics who not only target Israel, want to murder Arabs who don't share their nefarious creed. They want to destroy the West. They say so openly. And these people, when they demonstrate in Sydney or in Melbourne or in New York or Washington or in the capitals of Europe, they should be counteracted. They should be opposed, and they should be defied by the leaders. And yet we see, not in America, I'm happy to say, because President Trump is standing strong, but in Europe, one country after another succumbing to them, condemning Israel, that is fighting these monsters and is doing its best to avoid civilian casualties, but basically giving a prize of a Palestinian state to these people who want to use it to destroy the one and only Jewish state. That is not merely the slumber of democracies, it's the weakness of democratic leaders who at a time of testing should stand up and show leadership. And leadership means standing up for the truth, standing up for your conviction, standing up for the right side of history and not for the wrong side that right now is completely populated with these mass killers and terrorist monsters.
Yeah, I mean, you referenced Churchill and World War II, and I noticed that in the letter you wrote to Albanese that I got hold of, you used the word appeasement. You said of their move to recognise a Palestinian state that it's not diplomacy, it's appeasement. Again, is this word appeasement a direct reference to how Europe dealt with Hitler in the 1930s? And do you think we're seeing from leaders like Albanese and others a similar complacency now?
It's exactly what we're seeing. It's appeasement, pure and simple. It's, again, if you refer to Churchill, he called us the sacrifice of Czechoslovakia, another small democracy like Israel that was accused by Hitler that it took away land from this German minority in the Sudetenland that's part of Czechoslovakia. You have to give it up. You have to give them a state. And if you give them a state or independence, I'll let you go. I won't start a war. Well, okay, the democracies pressed Czechoslovakia to make that concession. They gave that part to Hitler. And what did he do? He immediately started World War II, the worst war in the history of humanity, that claimed millions and millions of people, innocent people, dead. Well, we're not going to repeat that. Israel is a small democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East that is being assaulted by terrorist organizations and other proxies of Iran and by Iran itself, and they openly call for our destruction, and they openly say that you, the West, will be their next target. And what do these countries do? Exactly what the Western countries did towards Czechoslovakia before World War II. They're condemning Israel. They want to put Israel at tremendous risk by giving this strategic piece of land right next to Jerusalem and Tel Aviv to these Palestinians who want to destroy Israel. They don't even hide it. Well, we're not going to do that. And we're not going to repeat the mistakes that were made prior to World War II. But I can tell you one other thing that Churchill said. He called appeasement feeding the crocodile. You know, you feed the crocodile that's chasing you in the hope that he will somehow spare you. But he said, he's not going to spare you. He's going to eat everything you give and then eat you. And that's what the Western leaders, including, unfortunately, in Australia, are doing. They're trying to feed the crocodile of militant Islam that has claimed the lives not only of Jews, but Christians and Arabs, many Muslims, and so on. And they think they'll pacify, they'll appease the crocodile. No, it won't. The more you pour fuel into this anti-Semitic, anti-Israel and anti-Western fire, the greater the fire will grow. It will consume you in the end. You have no protection unless you stand up to it.
Part of the problem here is that there is a very effective propaganda campaign being run against Israel. The Albanese government is aiding and abetting it, so are some media outlets. Prime Minister, what do you say to the libels that Israel is deliberately starving Palestinian children and is conducting a genocide in Gaza?
Well, it's the same lies that were leveled at the Jewish people in the Middle Ages. They said that Jews were killing Christian children to use their blood. And this preceded a lot of massacres against the Jews, culminating in the worst massacre of them all in the Holocaust. So it's the same thing. It's repeating itself. Israel is starving Palestinian children. What lies? I mean, we brought in 2 million tons of food into Gaza since the beginning of the war. That's 1 ton of food per every man, woman, and child. Hamas has been stealing this food and selling the remainder at exorbitant prices to the Palestinian civilians they claim to represent. That's what's causing the shortage. And as far as killing deliberately civilians, I mean, Israel has sent millions and millions of text messages, phone calls to Palestinian civilians telling them, get out of harm's way. Hamas has implanted itself in your neighborhoods, in your schools, in your communities. Get out of harm's way so that we can shepherd you to safe places. And many did, but many didn't, not because they don't want to, but because Hamas shoots them if they try to get out of harm's way. So Israel is doing things that no army has done. No army has done in trying to avoid civilian casualties. Just remember the Allies going into France or then into Germany, and they go into the cities. You think they tell the population, please leave so we can come in? You know, they bomb through, they blaze the way. I'm not condemning them. I think, you know, I'm not saying Churchill in any way was at fault or Eisenhower. But Israel is doing, I'm just stating a fact, Israel is doing what no other army has done. Not in Fallujah, not in Iraq, not in Afghanistan. The lengths that we go to protect the civilian population has been unheard of. Yet Israel is being vilified, just as in the Middle Ages. And those leaders and those media outlets who know better, should know better, should be ashamed of themselves for propagating this. But I'll tell you one more thing, Sharri.
Yes.
You know, the Jews may have been defenseless in the face of these vilifications and lies in yesteryear, but not today. They may get away with pushing these lies against us, but we do not succumb on the battlefield. We roll back those who would exterminate us, those who rape our women, beat our men, and burn our babies, and we'll secure the peace. And when we win the peace, we'll win both wars. We will win both the propaganda war and the war on the ground and give a different future for the people of Gaza and for ourselves.
You have had a strong supporter in United States President Donald Trump. You mentioned that support a moment ago, both in terms of anti-Semitism, but also, of course, in the fight against Iran. You've also got a strong personal relationship with the president. Do you think he's dismayed or even horrified by the Australian government's hostility towards Israel, its voting record in recent years at the United Nations?
Well, it's certainly dismayed us, and I think he sort of said, you know, what these countries say is irrelevant. And in the practical sense, he's right, because we're not going to commit suicide and put another Palestinian state right next to our doorstep in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem, because that's the distances are tiny. You know, Israel is like a fraction of 1%, I think, of Australia, just to give you, your viewers an understanding. It's a tiny country. And they want us to put in the middle of this tiny country another Palestinian state. Another, because we just had one, a de facto Palestinian state in Gaza. And what did the Palestinians do with it? Did they take care of their own people? Did they build up Gaza? No, they built it down into terror tunnels, for their terrorist monsters. And they openly declare their goal is, if you give them another opportunity, another state, they'll do it again. They'll kidnap people, they'll rape the women, they'll take the hostages, and they'll go to the extermination of Israel. That's their goal. So when Prime Minister Albanese and the leaders of France and Britain and others, when they say, oh, we'll give them a Palestinian state, they're actually rewarding terror. And they're saying, it doesn't matter what horrors you people do. It doesn't matter that you say that you'll go not only after Israel, but after the United States, death to Israel, death to America, death to the West. Last time I looked, Australia was part of the West, okay? Even though it's in the East. But it's our common Judeo-Christian civilization. They want to tear it down and destroy it. But it does matter, I think. In practical terms, no, it won't happen. But what will happen is you will encourage more and more and more of this radicalism in your own country,
Absolutely.
in your own church.
Absolutely.
And you will see this violence and this radicalism in your city, because if your leaders don't take a stand and they say, this is wrong, I know that what is being portrayed in the media is false, and I, as a leader, I take a stand, and I'm telling you, citizens of my country, take a stand against that too. If you don't do that, then the crocodile will get you in the end.
And that's what we're seeing at the moment. Prime Minister, I'm conscious of our time together. Look, when I saw you in your office about 10 months ago, you spoke to me about the threat of Iran, which you've since dealt with. You also spoke about your hopes for expanding the Abraham Accords, a return to the normalization deal with Saudi Arabia. Is this still your vision for peace in the region, for having a stable and peaceful Israel?
Very much so. I think, I believe in a simple idea. It's simple, but I think profound. It's called peace through strength. First comes the strength, then comes the peace. That's the rule in our part of the world, and I suspect also in your part of the world. If you're strong, you can make peace. If you're strong, you make allies. That's how it works. And Israel is strong. It's strong, yet fighting, with just means, a just war against tremendous vilification and lies. But we don't give up. And I think we're on the verge of completing this war, a seven-front war that includes Iran and its proxies. And when that happens, I think we'll have tremendous opportunities to expand the peace. I myself made, with President Trump, the Abraham Accords, 4 peace treaties with Arab states that hadn't been done for a quarter of a century. And I think after our victory, we're going to have plenty more.